growing up, they're all true. It lives inside. Don't you hear it?
Well, first of all, Bishal, thank you so much for your time. You look great. I love the hair on you. Just to get that.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Absolutely. But yes, thank you for sharing the film actually before it got released. And wow, after a long time, I actually was scared within a horror film. So, and wow, being this your first feature, how do you feel?
I feel very excited. It feels truly like a dream come true to have a movie coming out in theaters with this wonderful release. Our partners at Neon have just moved mountains to make this movie as accessible to a wide audience as they can. And yeah, when I started this project, it was really with this dream of making the kind of big screen horror experience that I remember just loving when I was younger. I went to see The Conjuring in high school, and that was a movie where people were daring each other to go see it because it was so scary. And I remember laughing and screaming through that kind of experience, and my parents couldn't even make it halfway through. And it just stuck with me so much, that kind of communal horror experience. And so it feels like a privilege to be able to create one of those now.
Absolutely. And also, this being somewhat of a true story, can you share that with us as well?
Yes, absolutely. So this came from a childhood story that one that I heard growing up. My grandfather, supposedly as a young man in India, he went to a family friend's house, and the family friend had a daughter who would carry around this mason jar. It was empty, but she would talk to it. And my grandfather one day said to her, "Hey, you know there's nothing in the jar, right?" And she got mad at him. She opened the jar and flung something at him, but of course nothing came out. But then that night, my grandfather goes home and just the weirdest stuff starts happening, and it escalates to, he left a pack of peanuts out one day, turned around, heard chewing, and when he turned back, the peanuts were gone. And he was just out of there. He just left, right? But this was a story, this is one of my grandfather's favorite stories to tell. I heard it all the time growing up. And as it kind of came together and I felt like I had the opportunity to do a first movie, I was thinking about these stories and how much they resonate across generations. And I thought, I want to do a movie about folklore. I want to do a movie about this kind of mythological demon that we hear about growing up, almost as a cautionary tale.
How would you compare the horror genre per se in India, regional cinema, Bollywood, let's say, compare that to Hollywood?
I find that Indian horror film is very much about this kind of mystical component, and I wanted to bring that to this as well. There's a spirituality to this film that I thought was very important, and I thought that the mystery of it, this sort of intangibility of the horror, that's such an important part of India, and our kind of ghost stories are so much about this kind of incandescence of post, sort of afterlife spirits essentially. But then I also wanted to, in the same breath, bring in this sort of raw, like physical brutality that exists within American horror films. I kind of wanted to have the best of both worlds and combine them into one movie.
Working with Megan Suri, Niru Bajwa, how was that?
I mean, they were just incredible. I mean, Megan anchors the film. Megan's performance really is the sort of fulcrum around which so much of the movie is based. And working with her was just day after day of pure inspiration. I think she brought so much intuition to the role. One of the things that I don't think is talked about enough is the physicality of horror acting. Certainly Megan, certainly Niru, and Betty Gabriel is in this movie. She utterly demolishes her more physically based sequences, and I found these actors to be just so in tune with their characters that even as they're kind of reacting to this otherworldly thing and they're in these extraordinary circumstances, they feel so grounded in their characters. And it's really my biggest hope as a director is to provide these actors with enough information that they can really live and breathe even in the most heightened moments of the film as their characters.
You've written and directed a plethora of short films prior to It Lives Inside. How does that process work, comparing it from a short to a full-length feature and now being out on big screen very soon?
Well, one of the things that I really kind of gained over this process, and it's something I started to feel when I made horror shorts. I made a film called Inferno that got a lot of people excited about me, but this was on a whole new level. But what I felt was that I was really in conversation with an audience. A lot of the short films that I had made before, I was very proud of them, but when I really started, as I was writing, almost feeling the audience in the room with me, I think that was the biggest change. I think that's the biggest shift that a lot of filmmakers go through as they make their jump to the first feature, because it's very much about thinking about, okay, I'm writing this, but people will be in a theater, they'll be at home, watching this at home. How are they going to react? What are their expectations? How do we subvert? How do we satisfy? And that kind of conversation with the audience, to me, is one of the best parts of making horror films and films for an audience.
What do you think is the main outcome that you feel that the audience should take away from this?
If it can scare you and help you feel more comfortable in your skin, I feel like it's everything I ever wanted for this movie.
Bishal, well, you had me scared, and I think everyone else would feel the same way when they watch it. Thank you so much for creating this content. Beautiful film, and all the very best to you. Congratulations. Thank you, Bishal.
Thank you so much, Monty. This was a great conversation.